I've heard of Gordon Highlander for years, and we've had, I think, projects that we worked together on, but there was one particular project in Dallas where the end user, once the project was complete, I got a call and he said, Greg, this project was incredible, it went well, but I think it would be well served for you and Greg Gordon to come over here and walk through the space with me. Well, that's a natural yes. And at that point, I had not met Greg.
And so it was an opportunity for Greg and I to both walk the space and see our work. I think sometimes it's hard for people to understand kind of the scale and volume of both of our businesses and all the different places we get pulled as CEOs and founders. That's one of the things that I love to do, but I don't get to do it as much as I'd like, is go see our work and visit the space. And so Greg and I got to do that together with Bobby and get to know each other. We did it over lunch, so we got to break bread, and right away I think we got through the cultural part of our business and getting to understand our businesses, and it became about our families and Greg's kids, my children. There was just a lot of bonding that happened right away.
When we started talking about the success of the project and the things that were done that may have been a little bit unique as compared to some of the other projects we worked on, we asked the question, why? Why did that happen? And what we found is that our organizations were very similar in value structure and how we are very client-centric. The client is the center of our universe, and having people on board in both of these organizations that were dedicated to be difference makers. When you added those together, Greg and I realized, well, it's no wonder we did so well on this project, is because you got two great companies together that worked hand in hand. And I think a lot of times the architects know it, but a lot of times the end users don't realize just how much a general contractor or an interior finish out contractor works with the furniture provider. We're literally working hand in hand with each other and depending on one another for the success of the project. After I had a chance to meet Greg, I knew immediately that we needed to have a little deeper dive. It was interesting because his company was moving into Austin and to San Antonio, just like we had. So the ability to compare notes, look at best practices, talk about the value of our people and their capabilities, it made sense for us to start working more closely together.
I've always set out to try to build a legacy business, and one of the things that I'm fascinated by is multi-generational businesses. And so that's in the FMG story. And, that's not hype. That's the truth. They have done something that most businesses don't pull off very well. And so Greg has been a good shepherd, I think, for what his father built. And he's also including his kids in the business. And so those are the ways that legacy businesses get built. The other thing is retention and tenure. I think those are things that you have to pay attention to when you talk about legacy business. And so just like Gordon Highlander's first employee is still with us, the tenureship and the retention of employees, I think it is the proof that the company places a high value on the people. The real special part of this for me is in the people and the relationship and the cultural yoking between FMG and Gordon Highlander. It's like the first person I meet, just the intention, the curiosity, my story, their story, Those are the things that really activate a space. And that's the intangible thing that I think people experience. They don't really understand how to put their finger on it. There's something about this place. And it's the energy of the people and the culture that I think is imprinted in the construction, in the careful layout, in the spatial dimensional part of getting to build something beautiful.
Sometimes you can have similar values, you can have a relationship and be friends, and then you start trying to do business with them. And this was very unique because Greg's company did the finish out. They did the demo, they put everything together. And I've got to tell you, the thing that was interesting to me is when I would stop in to visit, and stop in unannounced, it was the cleanest job site that I had been on in a while. And so I immediately started talking to the project manager, and I kind of wanted to know, okay, why are they doing this? And I could tell that he didn't know that Greg and I knew each other. This wasn't a special situation in his eyes. This was just another project, and this is how they do business and how they conduct themselves on the job site. And that was awesome. That was incredible to have that. I mean, this is not a giant project, but to us, it's the biggest thing in the world. And for them to treat it like that was awesome.
Yeah, this space is just incredible. There's so much energy when you walk in, and just the careful curation of the construction, the furniture, the architecture, history of the building. It's just a wonderful combination. It's just hard to describe. You just feel it right when you walk in.
When you have an architect involved in a project, they're coming up with conceptually, what business drivers are we trying to spread through the environment to make sure that it supports our design criteria. Then you've got the people tasked with building that and putting that together and bringing that to life. But what you find is on every project, there are going to be misses. There are going to be things that once you get in the middle of it and you need to shift gears. What I have learned from this project is as well as others, but it's different when it's your own project, is that there's nothing that you can't take a step back and go the other direction or change. The ability to make those changes during the construction process as we see it come to life, that had everything to do with there being no surprise in the end. And because of the flexibility with the products and the willingness of the contractor not to just get through the job. Everybody wants to hit that deadline, but the thing that we saw in this project was that we ran into something that we wanted to change. There was an ease of getting that done. We saw a change with the pergola product that we needed to make in the middle of the project, where it was away from the window wall and we had some guest seating, and we made that change really on the fly, which, as everyone knows, when you change something, it changes everything. There's electrical, there's voice and data. It changes the layout of the floor plan. Okay, well, the concrete wasn't stained in that area. Being able to sit down and make changes on the fly. All the time people say, no changes, don't make any changes. I would tell you, that's 100% different than the way we did this project. Gordon Highlander's group and Furniture Marketing's group, we've made changes. You only get to do this once, and I can tell you, a change during the project is not near as hurtful as having to change after you move in. Having a construction team that was of the same mindset, I never got one eye roll during the request. That's not common, but we've all seen it. A heavy sigh. We just didn't have that with Gordon Highlander.
When you think about the genesis of my relationship with Greg, it started where we were both serving someone that we had a great relationship with. And then, miraculously, we show up as a bidder on his San Antonio project, and he calls me and he says, Greg, holy crap, you gotta do this. And we were at the same time building out our office, and we needed Greg's help. And so at the same time, we got to serve each other. And that's the really cool symbiotic part of how Gordon Highlander and FMG can work together. We needed help with our furniture, which was the obvious place, but we also had some issues with the glass systems that my dad had drawn for our space. And FMG had a solution that met a really impossible schedule that we had. And so the way that we were able to serve each other with excellence, I think also added to the strength of the relationship. You can work real hard and think myopically about the finish out and the space, but then when you zoom out and you look at the rest of the assets that are around the space, this is a perfect place for FMG. I think of this as a hallmark project for San Antonio, and it's truly a wonderful experience just walking up the pearl signs and the different buildings. And I love building, I love architecture, and this is just a showpiece, carefully curated and put together, the different buildings. And then the tenancy, that's the part of great development. It builds community, and it becomes a place where memories are made, businesses are changed. It's here.